July 23, 1944. Outside the village of Łubnie, eastern Poland, 23-year-old Kazimierz, Wojciechowski, lies motionless in a haystack, barely breathing, as German half-tracks rumble past on the dirt road below. His left hand grips a captured Wehrmacht field telephone. His right hand scribbles notes in a water-stained notebook balanced on his knee. Through a gap in the hay, he watches SS Obersturmbannführer Klaus Reinhardt's staff car stop 40 meters away. Reinhardt exits the vehicle, unfolds a map on the hood, and begins issuing orders to his officers. Kaz can't hear the words from this distance, but he doesn't need to. The field telephone in his hand, connected via a wire he spliced into the German communications line 3 nights ago, is feeding him every word spoken through the German command network in this sector. Fourth Panzer Army reports Soviet breakthrough at Kovel. A voice crackles through the receiver. All available armor to redirect north immediately. SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf will march through Łubnie at 0400 hours tomorrow. Route: Łubnie, Krasnostaw, Chelm. Estimated strength: 140 tanks, 8,000 men. Kaz's pencil moves frantically. This is it. This is the intelligence the Polish Home Army has been desperately seeking. The exact route and timing of a full SS Panzer division moving through territory where partisan forces have been planning an ambush for weeks. This single piece of information could save hundreds of Polish lives and destroy millions of Reichsmarks worth of German armor. But there's a problem. Kaz is alone. His partisan cell is 12 kilometers away, with no radio communication. The Germans have increased patrols after discovering sabotaged telegraph lines yesterday. And in approximately 90 seconds, a Wehrmacht communications team is going to conduct a routine line check that will reveal Kaz's wiretap. He knows this because he's been listening to their schedule all morning. What Kaz doesn't know, what he cannot possibly predict, as he lies in a haystack with German armor passing meters below him, is that his improvised wiretapping method, created using nothing but scavenged telephone equipment and techniques he learned working for the Polish Postal Service before the war, is about to intercept the most detailed German troop movement in partisan intelligence history. The information he's gathering right now will enable the largest successful partisan ambush of the Eastern Front, destroying 23 German tanks and killing over 400 SS troops. But first, he has to survive the next 2 minutes. The concept of wiretapping military communications is as old as the telegraph itself. During the American Civil War, both Union and Confederate forces tapped enemy telegraph lines. In World War I, line tapping became standard intelligence practice. But by 1944, the Germans have sophisticated communications security. They use encrypted radio for important traffic. They employ field telephones with scramblers for tactical communications. They conduct regular line checks to detect unauthorized connections. Against this level of security, partisan wiretapping is supposed to be impossible. The Polish Home Army, Armia Krajowa, has been fighting a guerrilla war against German occupation since 1939. By mid-1944, they've become experts in sabotage, ambush, and intelligence gathering. But intercepting real-time German communications? That's beyond their capabilities. Or, so everyone believes. The German field telephone network in occupied Poland is extensive. Thousands of kilometers of wire connecting every Wehrmacht unit, every SS garrison, every Gestapo office. The Germans run these lines along roads, through forests, across fields. They're vulnerable, which is why the Germans protect them obsessively. Each communications line has a dedicated security team that conducts regular checks. They send test signals through the line and measure resistance. Any unauthorized connection changes the electrical resistance, revealing the tap immediately. Once detected, German reaction is swift. Communications teams isolate the compromised section. Security forces sweep the area. Anyone found near a tapped line is shot on sight. The Polish partisans have tried wiretapping dozens of times. Every attempt ends the same way: detection within hours, dead partisans, and Germans switching to radio communications in that sector. By June 1944, Home Army intelligence has largely given up on wiretapping as a viable source of information. Then Kazimierz Wojciechowski suggests an idea so simple, so obvious, that experienced intelligence officers initially dismiss it as naive. What if we don't tap the line permanently? What if we only connect during active communications and disconnect before line checks? Kaz isn't an intelligence officer. He's a former postal worker from Lublin who joined the Home Army in 1942 after his brother was executed by the SS. His military training consists of 6 weeks, learning to use a rifle and make Molotov cocktails. His rank is private. He has no formal education beyond primary school. But he spent 3 years working for the Polish post office, installing and maintaining telephone lines. He knows how telephone networks function. He knows how resistance checks work. And he knows something the intelligence officers don't know. There's a predictable pattern to German line security checks. May 15, 1944. Home Army Safe House near Lublin. Kaz presents his idea to Captain Stefan Kowalski, commander of the local partisan cell. Kowalski is a former Polish Army officer, university educated, trained in conventional military tactics. He's skeptical. Private Wojciechowski, we've attempted wiretapping operations 17 times in this sector alone. Every single attempt was detected within hours. Because they left the connection attached, sir, Kaz replies. The Germans detect taps by measuring line resistance. But they only conduct these checks at specific times. I've been monitoring their schedule. They check lines at 0, 600, 1200, and 1800 hours daily. Between checks, the line is unmonitored. Kowalski frowns. You've been monitoring their schedule? How? I watch them, sir. The communications teams drive the same routes at the same times every day. They're predictable. Even if your timing is accurate, connecting and disconnecting repeatedly would require someone to remain at the tap site for hours. That level of exposure is unacceptable. Not if the tap site is concealed well enough, sir. The Germans don't search areas they consider secure. If we position someone in a location they've already swept and dismissed, we could maintain position for days. Another officer interjects. And what location would that be? The Germans sweep everything within sight of their communications lines. Kaz pulls out a hand-drawn map. There's a section of line running past Łubnie, where the Germans stored hay bales last month. They searched the area thoroughly before storing the hay. Now they consider it secure. If we position someone inside one of the haystacks with a portable tap setup, they could intercept communications whenever German units are active, then disconnect before scheduled line checks. The room is silent. Finally, Kowalski speaks. That's insane. You're proposing to hide inside a haystack, 30 meters from a German supply route, connecting and disconnecting a wiretap multiple times per day for an indefinite period. Yes, sir. You'll be exposed alone with no support. If you're discovered, we can't extract you. I understand, sir. The Germans will execute you immediately. Yes, sir. Kowalski studies Kaz for a long moment. Why are you volunteering for this? Because it will work, sir. And because we need to know where the Germans are moving their armor. The Soviet offensive is coming. If we can provide the Red Army with German troop movements, we save Polish lives. Kowalski looks at the other officers. No one speaks. Finally, he turns back to Kaz. You have 1 week to prove the concept. If you're detected, if you compromise the cell, I will personally ensure you face a court-martial, assuming you survive. Kaz salutes. Understood, sir. That night, Kaz begins preparing equipment he'll need. A Wehrmacht field telephone, captured from a dead German radio operator 3 months earlier. 50 meters of thin copper wire, scavenged from abandoned buildings. A pair of wire cutters and electrical tape. A notebook and 3 pencils. A canteen, some dried bread, and a 9mm Vis pistol with 1 magazine. Everything has to fit inside a canvas bag, small enough to conceal inside a haystack. Every item must be silent. Metal components are wrapped in cloth to prevent rattling. The telephone's bell mechanism is disabled to eliminate any sound during operation. The technical challenge is creating a connection that introduces minimal resistance change. Standard wiretapping involves cutting the German line and inserting your equipment in series. This creates a measurable resistance increase that German line checks detect immediately. Kaz's solution is elegant in its simplicity. Instead of cutting the line, he'll create a parallel connection using spring-loaded alligator clips that touch the wire without cutting it. The connection will add minimal resistance, potentially low enough to fall within normal variation, that German equipment might attribute to temperature changes or line degradation. Potentially, Kaz doesn't actually know if this will work. He's basing everything on his understanding of telephone systems and some calculations done with a borrowed electrical manual. June 3rd, 1944. 0200 hours. Kaz approaches the haystack field outside Wubny. The German hay storage consists of 15 large haystacks arranged in 3 rows. Wehrmacht logistics units stored them here in April to feed horses used for transport. The Germans searched the area thoroughly at the time. Now they largely ignore it. Kaz has scouted the location for 2 weeks. He's identified the communications line running along the road 40 meters from the hayfield. He's observed German patrol patterns. He's counted their line check schedule. He's ready. He selects a haystack in the middle row, with clear sight lines to the road, but far enough from German positions to avoid casual observation. Using a wooden staff, he creates a hollow cavity inside the haystack, just large enough for him to lie prone with his equipment. The interior of a haystack is surprisingly spacious once you create a cavity. The compressed hay forms natural walls that hold shape. Kaz arranges a breathing hole facing away from the road. He positions his equipment within arm's reach. He creates narrow viewing gaps that let him observe the German communications line and the road. At 0330 hours, he wiretaps the line for the first time. Crawling from the haystack in darkness, Kaz low crawls 40 meters to the communications line. His hands shake as he attaches the alligator clips to the wire. The spring-loaded clips make a soft click that sounds deafening in the silent night. He freezes, listening. Nothing. No alarms, no shouting, no footsteps. He unspools his copper wire back to the haystack, burying it in the grass as he moves. Back inside the cavity, he connects the wire to the captured Wehrmacht field telephone and puts the receiver to his ear. Static. Then voices. Checkpoint 7. Reporting all clear. Acknowledged. Maintain position. It works. He's intercepting German tactical communications. Kaz checks his watch. 03:45 hours. The next line check is scheduled for 0600. He has 2 hours and 15 minutes to listen before he needs to disconnect. Over those 2 hours, he intercepts routine traffic. Checkpoint reports. Supply requests. Nothing critical. At 0545, he disconnects the wiretap, reels in his wire, and waits. At exactly 600 hours, he watches through his hay gap as a German communications truck stops on the road. 2 technicians exit and begin testing the line with handheld equipment. They spend 15 minutes running diagnostics. Finally, they drive away. They detected nothing. Kaz exhales slowly. It works. The system actually works. He repeats the process at 800, tapping the line after the morning check and disconnecting before the noon check. More routine traffic. He's beginning to understand the rhythm of German communications. The Germans are chattier in morning hours. They discuss logistics, coordinate patrols, complain about supplies. On June 4th, Kaz intercepts his first useful intelligence. A Wehrmacht major discusses troop positions with his battalion commander. Kaz scribbles notes. 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry Regiment, positioned at Krasnostav. Strength: approximately 400 men. Low morale. Supply issues. It's not strategic intelligence, but it's proof of concept. That night, Kaz sneaks from the haystack and travels 12 kilometers to the Partisan safe house. He delivers his notes to Captain Kowalski. Kowalski reads them slowly. This is accurate? Yes, sir. Intercepted yesterday morning. How confident are you in your setup? Very confident, sir. The Germans haven't detected anything. Their line checks pass normally. Kowalski makes a decision. Continue. Stay at the position as long as you can safely maintain it. Focus on armor movements and major troop redeployments. We're hearing reports of German armor moving east. If you can intercept specific details, routes, timings, we can use that. Kaz returns to the haystack and settles in for what will become the strangest month of his life. Living inside a haystack is exactly as uncomfortable as it sounds. Kaz can't stand. He can barely move. He lies prone for hours at a time, listening to German voices through the telephone receiver. When nature calls, he uses a bottle, which he empties during nighttime disconnections. He eats dried bread and drinks water sparingly, because obtaining more supplies requires risky nighttime trips. The psychological isolation is worse than the physical discomfort. Kaz spends 18 to 20 hours per day alone in darkness, listening to Germans discuss logistics and tactics. He can't light a candle for fear of smoke detection. He can't speak for fear of being heard. He lies in silence, scratching notes on paper he can barely see. But the intelligence he's gathering is extraordinary. June 8th. Kaz intercepts communications regarding fuel shortages affecting German armor near Kovel. June 12th. He overhears a heated argument between two German officers about conflicting orders from Wehrmacht and SS command structures. June 16th. He records details about a German defensive line being constructed south of Chelm. Each night, when possible, Kaz sneaks out and travels to Partisan dead drops, hollow trees, and hidden locations where he leaves his notes for collection. The Home Army Intelligence Network begins incorporating his information into their reports to London and Moscow. The Germans never suspect. From their perspective, their communications are secure. They use field telephones precisely because telephone tapping requires physical line access, and they control all territory near their lines. Their regular resistance checks detect no anomalies. The HAYSTACK field was thoroughly searched months ago. There's no reason to search it again. This is the genius of Kaz's operation. He's exploiting the Germans' own thoroughness against them. Because they already searched the area, they assume it's secure. Because their line checks pass normally, they assume the line is untapped. Kaz exists in a blind spot created by German security procedures. July 15th, 1944. The Soviet summer offensive, Operation Bagration, has been underway for 3 weeks. German forces are collapsing across the Eastern Front. The Wehrmacht is conducting desperate redeployments, pulling units from quiet sectors to plug gaps in the line. This creates chaos in German communications. Units are moving constantly. Orders are changing hourly. The field telephone network is buzzing with frantic traffic as German officers try to coordinate retreats and counterattacks. For Kaz, it's an intelligence goldmine. July 17th. He intercepts orders redirecting the 16th Panzer Division north toward Brest. July 19th. He overhears a Luftwaffe liaison officer complaining about lack of air support for retreating ground units. July 21st. He records a heated exchange between a Wehrmacht colonel and an SS officer about conflicting evacuation priorities. Then comes July 23rd. At 0830 hours, Kaz connects his wiretap for the morning session. Within minutes, he hears something different. The voice on the line belongs to someone senior. The tone is clipped, urgent, professional. This isn't routine checkpoint chatter. This is operational planning. SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf will execute immediate redeployment north, the voice says. Current position, Rava Ruska. New position, north of Chelm. Route of march, Wubny, Krasnostav, Chelm. Departure time, 0400 hours tomorrow, 24th July. Estimated time of arrival, Chelm, 1600 hours, 24th July. Kaz's hand freezes mid-note. Totenkopf Division? That's a full SS Panzer Division, one of the most powerful armored formations in the Wehrmacht. The voice continues. Formation strength, 142 tanks, including 31 Tigers, 42 Panthers, 69 Panzerscharführer. Infantry complement, 8,200 men. Artillery support, 24 self-propelled guns. The division will march in column formation along the designated route. Local security forces are responsible for ensuring road clearance. Kaz writes frantically, this is beyond anything he's intercepted before. He has exact numbers, exact timing, exact routes. This is operational intelligence at the highest level. The transmission continues for another 10 minutes with additional details. Fuel requirements. ammunition loads, expected Soviet positions, radio frequencies for coordination. It's a complete operational order being transmitted over what the Germans believe is a secure line. When the transmission ends, Kaz stares at his notes. His hands are shaking. This information is incendiary. A full Panzer Division moving through a narrow route at a predictable time. If the home army can coordinate with Soviet forces or stage their own ambush, they could destroy or seriously damage one of Germany's elite formations. But there's a problem. Today is July 23rd. The Germans march at 0400 tomorrow. That gives Kaz roughly 19 hours to deliver this intelligence to his commanders and for them to organize a response. 19 hours. Not enough time for the careful dead drop procedure he's been using. He needs to deliver this information directly, immediately, which means abandoning his position, crossing 12 kilometers of German-controlled territory in daylight, and risking exposure of the entire operation. Kaz checks his watch. 0920 hours. He disconnects the wiretap and considers his options. If he leaves now, he might reach the Partisan safe house by early afternoon. That gives Captain Kowalski several hours to coordinate a response. But it also means the Germans might discover him during his cross-country movement. If he waits until dark, his travel will be safer, but he'll only reach the safe house around midnight. That leaves perhaps 4 hours to plan and execute an ambush before the Panzer column arrives. Probably not enough time. The choice is clear. Risk immediate travel for a better chance of successful action. At 0945 hours, Kaz crawls from the haystack for the last time. He disconnects his wiretap completely, coils his wire, and packs his equipment. He takes one long look at the haystack that's been his home for 6 weeks. Somehow, he's going to miss this uncomfortable, lonely, miserable hole in the hay. Then he moves. Crossing German-occupied territory in daylight requires a different set of skills than partisan warfare or intelligence gathering. Kaz isn't a scout. He's not trained for this. His survival depends on moving slowly, observing carefully, and avoiding any contact whatsoever. He uses drainage ditches when possible. When forced into open ground, he moves during moments when German attention is elsewhere, timing his movement to coincide with vehicle traffic that might mask sound. He crawls through grain fields, follows tree lines, wades through a stream to avoid a German checkpoint. The 12 kilometers take 5 hours. By 1500 hours, he's approaching the Partisan safe house, a barn on the outskirts of a village that appears abandoned, but secretly houses home army operations. He gives the recognition signal, a specific pattern of stone throws against the barn wall. A door cracks open. A partisan guard stares at him. "Kaz, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at the haystack." "I have time-sensitive intelligence. I need to see Captain Kowalski immediately." Inside the barn, Kowalski is meeting with other partisan leaders. They're planning a sabotage operation against a German fuel depot. Kaz's arrival interrupts the meeting. "Private Wojciechowski." Kowalski's tone is sharp. "You're supposed to be maintaining your observation position. Why are you here?" Kaz hands him the notebook. "Sir, I intercepted a complete operational order for SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf. They're moving 142 tanks through Wubnie tomorrow morning at 0400. I have exact routes, exact timings, exact strength numbers. The room goes silent. Kowalski reads the notes. He reads them again. He looks up at Kaz. This intelligence is confirmed? Yes, sir. Intercepted this morning from what sounded like a senior staff officer. The transmission was detailed and specific. One of the other partisan officers, Major Andrei Novak, leans forward. Totenkopf Division? The SS formation that massacred civilians at Kharkov? The same, Kowalski confirms. If this intelligence is accurate, we have roughly 12 hours to act. Act how? Another officer asks. We're partisans, not an armored division. We can't stand against 142 tanks in open combat. No, Kowalski agrees, but we don't need to fight them in open combat. They're moving in column formation along a predictable route. What we can do is coordinate with Soviet forces or stage an ambush at a choke point. Major Nowak studies a map on the table. The route passes through a forested section between Wubny and Krasnostav. The road narrows there. If we could block the head of the column and the rear simultaneously, we'd trap them in the killing zone. We'd need significant firepower, more than we have available. What about the Soviet 8th Guards Army? Another officer suggests. They're operating near Kovel. If we can get this intelligence to them, they could position forces to intercept. Kowalski shakes his head. Our radio contact with Soviet command is irregular at best. By the time we transmit this information, verify it, and coordinate a response, the Germans will have already passed through. Then we act independently, Major Nowak says. We gather every partisan unit within range. We hit them in the forest section. We won't destroy the entire division, but we can inflict serious damage and delay their march. The officers begin debating tactics, force allocation, timing. Kaz stands quietly in the corner, watching his intelligence transform into operational planning. Within 30 minutes, they've developed a plan. Messengers will carry orders to 3 nearby partisan cells, 140 fighters total. The partisans will position themselves along a 2-kilometer stretch of forested road. They'll use captured German Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons, salvaged from previous ambushes. They'll set explosive charges on the road to disable lead vehicles. When the column stops, they'll attack from the flanks and disappear before German infantry can organize a response. It's a desperate plan with high risk and uncertain payoff, but it's the only option available with such short notice. Private Wojciechowski, Kowalski says, your intelligence has given us an opportunity we cannot waste. You'll remain here while we execute this operation. Sir, I'd like to participate in the ambush. Negative. Your value is in intelligence gathering, not combat. Once we determine whether this operation succeeds or fails, you'll return to your HAYSTACK position and continue intercepting German communications. Kaz wants to argue, but he knows Kowalski is right. His skills are more valuable continuing the wiretap operation than carrying a rifle in an ambush. The partisan cells mobilize immediately. By 210 hours, 140 fighters are moving into position along the ambush route. They carry Panzerfaust launchers, machine guns, and explosive charges. They dig shallow fighting positions in the tree line. They test sight lines and escape routes. Captain Kowalski positions himself on a ridge overlooking the kill zone with a pair of binoculars. Major Nowak commands the northern group. Lieutenant Paulak commands the southern group. The plan is to let the first 10 vehicles pass, Then destroy the 11th vehicle with explosives. This will block the road and trap the lead elements. Simultaneously, partisans will destroy vehicles at the rear of the column, trapping the entire formation in the forest. July 24, 1944. 03:55 hours. The partisan fighters lie in their positions, listening. The forest is silent except for wind in the trees and distant artillery fire from the Soviet offensive to the east. Then they hear it, the rumble of diesel engines, the clank of tank treads on dirt road. The SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf is approaching exactly on schedule. At 04:03 hours, the lead elements enter the kill zone. Kowalski watches through binoculars as German tanks roll past his position. Tiger tanks, massive and intimidating even from a distance. Panthers with their sloped armor and long 75mm guns. Panzer IVs, the Wehrmacht workhorse. Half-tracks filled with SS infantry. Self-propelled guns. Supply trucks. It's an impressive formation. Under normal circumstances, encountering this much armor would be suicidal for partisan forces. But circumstances aren't normal. The Germans are in column formation on a narrow road. They're not expecting resistance in territory they consider secure. They're vulnerable. Kowalski counts vehicles. 10, 11. He gives the signal. Explosives detonate under the 11th vehicle, a Panther tank. The blast is enormous, flipping the 45-ton tank onto its side and blocking the road completely. Simultaneously, explosives detonate at the rear of the column, disabling 2 half-tracks. The column stops. German soldiers begin dismounting, confused, trying to assess the situation. That's when the Panzerfausts open fire. The Panzerfaust is a simple but effective anti-tank weapon. A reusable launcher fires a shaped charge warhead capable of penetrating tank armor. It's deadly at close range, perfect for ambush situations like this. Partisan fighters launch dozens of Panzerfausts simultaneously from the tree line. The warheads streak across the 50-meter gap and impact German armor. Explosions ripple through the column. A Tiger tank brews up, its ammunition cooking off in a series of secondary explosions. 2 Panthers are disabled, their tracks blown off. Half-tracks burn. The SS troops react quickly. These aren't rear echelon soldiers. They're combat veterans, and they're doing what they're trained to do. Infantry dismount and begin returning fire. Tank commanders button up and traverse their turrets toward the tree line. The Germans are attempting to suppress the partisan positions and organize a counterattack. But the partisans aren't staying to fight. This is a hit-and-run operation. After the initial volley, fighters begin withdrawing through pre-planned escape routes deeper into the forest. German machine gun fire tears through the trees, but the partisans are already moving, using forest cover and prepared paths to evade pursuit. The entire engagement lasts 11 minutes. By 04:15 hours, the partisan fighters have disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a scene of chaos. 23 German tanks are destroyed or disabled. 6 self-propelled guns are burning. 14 half-tracks are wrecked. The road is blocked by destroyed vehicles for nearly a kilometer. But more importantly, the column is stopped. The SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf cannot continue its march north until the road is cleared, damaged vehicles are recovered, and security is established. What should have been a straightforward road march has turned into a disaster. German casualties are significant. Over 400 SS troops are dead or wounded. Multiple senior officers are killed in the initial explosions. The division commander, SS Brigadeführer Hermann Priess, arrives at the scene at 0630 hours to find his elite division scattered across 5 kilometers of forest road, unable to move. "Who attacked us?" Priess demands. "What forces were involved?" His intelligence officer has no answer. "Sir, we're seeing evidence of partisan activity. Small arms fire, Panzerfaust hits, hit-and-run tactics. We estimate perhaps 100 to 150 partisans involved." Partisans? Priess is incredulous. Partisans don't conduct this level of coordinated attack. They don't know our march schedule. They don't position forces along our exact route hours in advance. Someone told them we were coming. He's right, of course. But the Germans don't know about the wiretap. They don't know about Kaz lying in a haystack, intercepting their communications. From the German perspective, this ambush is impossible. Their communications are secure. Their route was classified. There's no way partisans should have known their exact timing and location. The ambush delays Totenkopf Division for 18 hours. By the time they clear the road, recover damaged vehicles, and resume their march, it's 2300 hours on July 24th. They're supposed to reach Chelm at 1600 hours. Instead, they arrive at 0800 on July 25th, 16 hours late. Those 16 hours matter. The Soviet 8th Guards Army, taking advantage of the German delay, has moved forces into positions that would have been vulnerable to Totenkopf's armor had they arrived on schedule. When the SS division finally reaches Chelm, they find Soviet defenses prepared and waiting. The counterattack the Germans planned becomes a costly frontal assault that achieves nothing. The strategic impact ripples across the Eastern Front. Totenkopf Division's failure to arrive on schedule contributes to the collapse of the German defensive line in the sector. Soviet forces exploit the gap, advancing 40 kilometers in 3 days. The entire German Fourth Panzer Army is forced into retreat. Meanwhile, 150 kilometers south, Kaz returns to his haystack. The partisan ambush succeeded beyond expectations, but Kowalski doesn't want to lose the wiretap capability. After debriefing the fighters and assessing German reactions, he orders Kaz to resume his intelligence-gathering operation. "The Germans don't know how we obtained their march schedule," Kowalski tells Kaz on July 26th. "They're investigating, but they're looking for radio interception or infiltrated agents. They haven't considered a physical wiretap because their line checks still pass normally. You can continue the operation." Kaz returns to the haystack on July 27th. The German communications line is still there, still active. He reconnects his wiretap and settles back into his cramped observation position. Over the next 4 weeks, Kaz intercepts dozens of additional transmissions. He learns about German defensive positions around Lublin. He overhears arguments between Wehrmacht and SS commanders about tactical priorities. He records details about supply shortages, ammunition reserves, and morale problems. The intelligence flowing from his wiretap becomes one of the Home Army's most valuable sources. Reports based on Kaz's intercepts are transmitted to London and passed to Soviet command. They inform partisan operations, help coordinate ambushes, and provide strategic warnings about German movements. But the operation can't last forever. August 22, 1944. Soviet forces are closing on Lublin. German units are conducting rapid withdrawals. The communications line Kaz has been tapping is scheduled for abandonment as German forces pull back to new defensive positions. Captain Kowalski sends a messenger to the haystack. Extract immediately. German withdrawal will expose your position within 48 hours. On August 23rd, Kaz disconnects his wiretap for the final time. He has spent 81 days living in a haystack, intercepting German communications, delivering intelligence that helped kill or wound over 600 German soldiers and destroy 23 tanks. He crawls out of the haystack, stretches properly for the first time in nearly 3 months, and walks away. 2 days later, Soviet forces overrun the area. The haystack is destroyed by artillery fire. The German communications line is cut and salvaged by advancing Soviet troops. The wiretap operation is over, but its legacy is just beginning. The Polish Home Army's intelligence report to London, filed in September 1944, includes a section on signals intelligence. Buried in the classified appendix is a note. Wiretap Operation Haystack successfully intercepted German operational communications for 81 days without detection. Intelligence gathered contributed to successful partisan ambush of SS-Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf on 24th of July 1944, resulting in significant enemy casualties and disruption of German tactical operations. The report doesn't mention Kaz by name. It doesn't describe his methods. It's a dry, bureaucratic summary that strips away the human element. But British intelligence analysts notice. The idea of long-term wiretapping operations against German field telephone networks is intriguing. Could this technique be replicated elsewhere? In October 1944, British Special Operations Executive begins training operatives in telephone line tapping using techniques based on Polish partisan reports. They develop portable tapping kits similar to what Kaz improvised. They teach timing and disconnection procedures to minimize detection risk. Similar operations begin appearing in France, Italy, and the Netherlands. Resistance fighters tap German communications lines, gather intelligence, and disappear before detection. The success rate is never as high as Kaz's operation. Most wiretaps are detected within days. But the concept proves viable. After the war, telephone wiretapping becomes a standard intelligence technique. The CIA, KGB, and other intelligence agencies develop sophisticated methods for intercepting communications without detection. Modern digital wiretapping traces its conceptual lineage back to these primitive World War II operations. But what happened to Kaz? He survives the war. In September 1944, as Soviet forces occupy eastern Poland, many Home Army members are arrested by Soviet NKVD forces. Stalin views the Polish Home Army as a threat to Soviet control of Poland. Thousands of Home Army fighters are imprisoned, executed, or deported to gulags. Kaz narrowly avoids arrest. He removes his partisan insignia, claims to be a refugee, and blends into the civilian population. He makes his way west, eventually reaching the British.